Happy Friday! Look, I even got my Hawaiian shirt on, especially since it's a Friday. I always wear a Hawaiian shirt. So, welcome back. Here we go. Last bit of your last lecture on completing Manifest Destiny. So I know we started this about a week ago, and here's the last bit of it right now. Manifest Destiny. Let's kind of look at the word. We look at this idea of being destiny. Destiny is this idea of something that we are destined to do, something that we have to do, something that we are going to do, something that is like a rite of passage. Manifest, that means that we created it. So what happens is newspaper man named John L. O'Sullivan created this idea. The United States has had this idea of manifest destiny. And with manifest destiny, it's been from the very beginning all the way up to now. It is that concept of going from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and in other words, from going from sea to shining sea. And once he put this on, it has, and if we take a look at it, it really is our destiny. From the very, very beginning of the 13 colonies to a war for independence that gave us the Treaty of Paris, that took us to the Mississippi River, to then the Louisiana Purchase that took us to the Rocky Mountains, to the annexation of Texas, to a war with Mexico, and eventually then the Oregon country that we make it from coast to coast. We even produce a painting. This painting should look familiar. We've kind of talked about this before, and we said this is our image, or this is our manifestation of what we believe destiny should be. If we look at this guardian angel, this angel of light, we can see her there. Of course, she has a Bible in her hand, but also in her hand, you notice that she's laying the telegraph line. That telegraph line will later on be a telephone line that goes all the way across. You can look behind her, and everywhere you see behind her, you see light. And everywhere in front of you, you can see darkness. So the thing is that she's bringing light to dark. She's bringing technology to where there's no technology. She's bringing Christianity to the savage heathen. She's bringing modernization to an unmodern world. You can see the Rocky Mountains there. You can look and see the railroad following behind her. Kelly, get a little battery. And then in addition, you can see everything that goes on. Is that going to be on there?
Well, you saying, Kelly, you have low battery is going to be on there.
It's okay. We're trying to figure this all out as we go, so we're all good. You can see the miners coming. You can see the farmers that are coming to the west, and you can see the Indians that are leaving. You can see the wild animals that are running. But you can see this idea of manifest destiny. And John L. O'Sullivan says it best: we are a nation of human progress, and that nation of human progress is going west, going west, going west, going west. If we look at our map, we can see that idea of going west. That idea of going west from here, with our first 13 colonies, to here, the Treaty of Paris, the Mississippi River. Here, we purchase Florida. After the War of 1812, we work out some treaties for some land up in this territory. Then here, in 1803, we purchase Louisiana Territory to the Rocky Mountains. The Texas annexation, and eventually the Mexican cession, the Gadsden Purchase, and last but not least, the Oregon country. We even can take it one step further. We can go all the way to Hawaii or all the way up into Alaska, which is shortly come after. We can look at it here in this painting of the manifestation. Everything here of everybody traveling to the west. Go west, young man, and let the country grow with you. And that country grew and grew and grew. From people like the Donner Party that went out. That Donner Party, even though they ran into trouble, they still made it to the west. To all those wagon trains. To people like Jim Beckworth, one of the first people to come across after following the trails of Lewis and Clark, who did come across to the west. To people like even Daniel Boone, who made it across to the west. Those are the people we see. I think this is a painting that basically tells it best. If you look, you can see it. And this is the idea of our American Renaissance. That's why we even put kind of a Renaissance style of art to it. If you notice kind of the light behind her, that's called Caravaggesque lighting. That Caravaggesque lighting is named after Caravaggio, the great Italian painter during the Renaissance. So what happens with the U.S.? As we can see from this chart, a bar graph once again. Graphs are coming back to haunt you. Yes, I know. We can look at 1800. We can see that we had just about 860,000 square miles of land. If we look at by 1830, 30 years later, we have basically more than double that at about 1.7 million acres of land. And if you go on this to 1860, right at the time of the Civil War, we have almost 3 million acres or 3 million miles of land. If we look at this here, we keep growing and growing and growing. And that's been our whole concept from the Industrial Revolution on through. Matter of fact, if you look at the picture up on the top right, or I think top left, I'm sorry, you'll notice that that's actually that's actually in 1869 after the Civil War, when we have the Union Pacific and the Eastern Railroads meet together at Promontory Point, Utah, where we lay the Golden Spike. This way, now we have the connection of the United States all the way through. So what has it done? Our completing a manifest destiny for this unit is basically Texas statehood, 1845. Texas was an independent country for 9 years, the Lone Star State, and still use that flag today, the Lone Star State in Texas. Oregon country in 1846. We already had large numbers of Americans come through there to move on down toward California to settle in California from those wagon trains. So we look at basically Oregon, Washington, and Idaho and tell England, hey, England, we want to purchase this land. England probably doesn't want to sell it. However, we look at England and go, would you like to try for a third war? So we look at the idea of moving the border of Canada up. We call it 5440 or fight, which means that you move the border to the 54th parallel, or let's go to war for it again. Of course, England does not want to go to war with the United States again. After the American Revolution, they lost, after the War of 1812, so they moved the border up to current day Canada is what we see. Okay, 5440 or fight was our slogan. The Mexican Cession of 1848, this gave us basically all the way over to California. We paid about $10 million for this in the Treaty of Guadalupe. So right here, Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo. That was our agreement that we had. Right after that, as you can see, it's about the time period of the gold rush. California will even have a small revolt as to break away. Vermont broke away for about 6 days and became its own country. We talked about that. Texas was its own independent nation for 9 years. California makes an attempt, unsuccessfully under John C. Fremont, but it was called the Bear Flag Revolt. If you look at the California flag today, which I have in my classroom, which I'm not, but I have it in my classroom, we know that the California flag has the Great Bear flag that's on there. And last but not least, the Gadsden Purchase of 1853. This is the lower part of Arizona, okay, the lower Arizona. This gave us the last bit of land that we need to actually make it from coast to coast. Or in other words, like what John L. Sullivan was trying to say, in the idea of manifest destiny, from sea to shining sea. And the idea of the Gadsden Purchase becomes big. What did we get from that? Most of the thing that we wanted was the railroad. We know the railroad coming from coast to coast is going to be there. We still see that railroad going through there today. It's that lower part of land that we need. In addition, we also found gold, silver, copper mines down that area, and we found there's great agricultural land in that area too. So the way the United States has grown has been that idea of a manifest destiny. It was our destiny from the very, 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 very beginning to go from coast to coast, to go from Atlantic to the Pacific, or from sea to shining sea. That's how we have completing the United States. But we run into a problem. Because now it's not just from coast to coast, it's now everywhere in between. And the problem that we have is, how do we properly expand the United States? That properly expand the United States is looking at growth. And sometimes the problem is when we grow too fast, it hurts. We know that. You guys have all woke up the next morning with your knees hurting, your hips hurting, your elbows hurting, where your joint plates are, because you grew overnight. Thing is, United States grew way too fast. As we grew way too fast, we're going to have problems with our expansion. How quickly they become a state. California, matter of fact, became a state. We found gold in 1848. 1849, the entire world rushed in. By 1850, California became the 31st state. But we have all these other states that are now becoming populated. And the biggest question that we're going to have is, how do we deal with this expansion? Especially with the expansion of slavery. Remember, according to the Missouri Compromise, we knew that there was a split in the United States, a split between North and South. That split in the United States between North and South is called the Mason-Dixon line, or the 3630 line. And that line basically was a difference between the agricultural South and the industrial North. With the industrial North, they were getting rid of slavery. Matter of fact, most states have outlawed it. In the South, the states were now expanding slavery because of cotton, and with that need, the industrialization did that. But the Missouri Compromise also had a trigger on there, that every time a slave reaches the age of 25 years old, they are to be set free. Slavery was supposed to decline from 700,000 down to 0. The problem is now slavery with our expansion in between is going to increase from 700,000 to 3.5 million. And the states have to make those decisions on, are they going to be a free state or a slave state? And that's going to cause our next conflict. And that conflict will be across the line called the Mason-Dixon line, which will be the Civil War. When we return, not next week, because next week's spring break and we get to go, so we can't go anywhere to enjoy anything. So the scenario is stay safe, do the best you can. Hopefully some of this learning's for you. And listen to me, guys, if you're looking for something really cool to watch, this right here, just so you know, this the History Channel put out and did a great job on it. I would love for you to watch this section, if you can find it. There's a section from the History Channel. It's called Westward Movement. It does a great job, absolutely great job on the wagon trains west, especially the Donner Party. You'll probably lose your appetite on some of it because they talk about what happened to some of them. And they do a great graphic idea. They talk about Lewis and Clark. They talk about the gold rush. They talk about the Battle of the Alamo. They talk about the war with Mexico. They do an excellent job talking about even Daniel Boone making his way across. With Daniel Boone making his way across, wait till you find out what happened to his son, unfortunately, after an Indian attack out on the frontier in Kentucky area. Okay? Guys, have a great break. Our lesson is done. I'll see you in a week. If you have anything, email me, do whatever you need to do. Enjoy. Woohoo! Spring break!